Hey gang, this is Brooklyn Pony Part 21. Obviously there's 20 other videos in this series. If you haven't seen them, I suggest you go back and look them over. But basically, I'm rebuilding a 66 Mustang convertible from scratch. And in the previous video I showed the modification of the core support to hold a radiator. There's actually, I should have mentioned in that video that it was for a 68 model. The owner wanted one slightly bigger, and to that end we got one a little bigger and had to modify the core support. So that went well, but I wanted to show you something to do with the door and a quarter. Now, many videos ago I showed assembly of this car from pieces and parts, and I would go back on those videos and mention that whenever I installed the quarter panels, everything went smooth. The wheel houses fit nice, the quarters fit nice, everything lined up just as it should. And in those videos I discussed how I wasn't going to weld the door jambs at that time. And you can see they're not welded right now. I say door jamb, the skin where the door quarter skin or quarter panel mates to the B-pillar. And the reason for that was, there's a couple of reasons, but one of them was I wanted to have the car sitting on the ground. I didn't want to have it sitting up on the dolly that I had, because then the weight gets a little distorted and I wasn't comfortable with welding everything solid and then having issues later. And I still don't have any issues, but I wanted to show you what's going on. Normally, if I put a quarter on a car, I do all the welding, and I actually weld inside where the quarter lip comes back to the rocker panel. And I did not weld that either. Again, I wanted to make sure the car was on the ground and all the weight, or some of the weight, was on the car. Now, in the fitment of this, I'll show you. Let me just tape this door where it belongs. In the fitment, the top was great, and I knew that going in. And at the bottom, it was a little bit tight, and you can see I've already done some cutting on this. And I wanted to show you this because if I don't show you, who is? I mean, I've shown other modifications on these quarters, from cutting the tail section and shortening it, to doing the same modification on the 68 coupe and also on the other Mustangs that I've done. But you run into the problem sometimes where this quarter, if I show it with the correct gap there of what material that I cut out, you can see how close it is to the door. The top is good, there's no issues there, and the quarter, it looks like it's sitting high, but it's not. I just haven't welded that down yet. That's pretty normal. The door, front to rear, is correct. It lines up with the front of the rocker like it should, where it turns back, and I've already had everything bolted on with the fenders, so I know everything is good with the door, and it's in its proper location. Now my fix, as I've shown this before, is cutting out material and fitting it back, sliding the material back. Now I'll note that there's room in there, because even though the quarter fits the way it should, and the B-pillars, through all the measuring and everything I did to make sure those are square, everything is right with those. The issue lies with the actual shape of the quarter. So to fix this, again, I cut this a line right here, and I'm going to trim this as I need to get it to move back and get my gap the way I want it. This is the time to do these things. You don't want to get ahead of yourself and weld everything in and then have issues, and that's why I'm coming back to this at this point. Now again, this lower section is not welded in. I can actually get behind that and pull it out, and there's no adjustments needed. It fits flush like it should, but again, in case I need to do some modifications, that's why I did not weld that. So at this point, again, you can see I've already done cutting with the cutoff wheel, and again I will trim that slightly and get that to fit, and then tack weld that all back together until I'm comfortable with the gap that I'm looking for. Okay, hopefully I can show you what I'm referring to now a little better. I did take my little sanding disc, 2-inch, and I sanded on the edge right here And by doing that, that took away some material that allowed me to move this aft. So by taking just a paint stick, and I'm going to put it in here and apply pressure, now, I don't know how well you can see it or not, but the gap is much nicer. It's almost dead on where I want it. I can come down further and again adjust a little bit of tension on it and take care of that gap. And it fits the B-pillar really nice, and so I'm pretty happy with that. So the process from here, I'll bare the metal, and I'll do some tack welds as I go along. Now the other thing, this section here will move, so I have to be careful that I continue to use this edge as my guide, and I tack weld a little bit at a time and keep this contour correct to this edge. I hope that makes sense, but you can see this, hopefully see, that piece will move because there's no corner now to hold it rigid. Now sometimes I use these really super strong little magnets, and I'm going to use that today to try to balance out this metal. That's going to create the flat edge that I want and hold it still while I'm doing some tacking. So that's going to help with that location. I'm going to have to push in a little bit up here just to get this where I want it, so I can see it's deflected just a little bit, but that should be pretty minor. Sometimes you have to go the other way. What I'm doing here is I've got a screwdriver behind the piece that I cut loose, the main panel, and I'm also using the paint stick to push it back because it's this has a very subtle curve to it, and it's wanting to go flat because that's the normal shape of the metal without this corner on it. So at this point, all I'm doing is kind of cheating that out just a little bit. I'll tack it, and then this will go back in. There we go. This needs to go in just a little bit right here at the top, so I'll put a little bit of pressure on it. Just a little. Nice. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll double check my fitment. I already like the way this looks. I like the way the gap is at the door now. Pretty consistent all the way through. And so I'll go back in between and fill these in with more tack welds. Okay, the battery died on my camera, but I went ahead and finished blending that out, and I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Again, the door gap is consistent and I like it. I did weld this in. I rotated it in and welded that inside. Maybe hard to see there, but I welded it in 2 locations. The one other conflict that I'm going to resolve is the dip in the door and the dip in the quarter are slightly off. So the plan, I need this dip to be lower. In order to do that, I cut a relief right in the middle of where I'm going to put that spot weld. And by doing that, I can push this down, and you can see how that opens up. Just a little, but that'll be enough to make that dip more consistent with the shape of the door. And that'll look better once I weld it and make it solid. Okay, so as I was saying, I pushed that down and I welded it, and now it is very, very close. It's kind of hard to see. There's hardly any difference in the height of the door to that dip in the quarter. So I'm really happy with that. The rest of it is very consistent, and if there's any adjustments I can make it while I'm welding. I say that because I can push in or out still just a little bit, which just a little bit makes a big difference. So I can either go in if I need to, or I can come out just a little bit. And again, I still haven't welded the inside bottom yet. So as I go along, I'll make these little adjustments and fine tune it. So I've done some more tuning, as I call it, and I'm really happy with the results. Nice transition here, very smooth, very nice down here. Now there's a little bit here, but that'll be addressed. None of these are ever going to fit perfect. I don't care how much you buy one product over another, no matter who makes it. There's always going to be some variance. Now this is very close, but this is about as close as I'm going to be able to get it without adding a little filler to smooth everything up. But again, I'm very happy with it. Now I still need to finish filling all the welds on the edge here, and I still need to weld all the way in the bottom, but I'm almost done with this, and I think it's going to turn out really nice. Alright, so it's fully welded. It's not going anywhere, and again, things line up really nice. A little bit of filler work here and there to dress things out. And I've also welded it at the bottom where the flange kicks back into the rocker panel. So it's nice and solid. And I think that's going to take care of the driver's side. Now I have to do a little similar work on the passenger side to finish it out, and it'll be taken care of. So that'll be the end of this video. I just want to point out, you'll run into these problems. I don't care who makes the panels. There's always going to be some variations and differences, and so this is some of the process involved with making things right. Just know that going in, and you'll have to deal with it as you go along. That'll be the end of this video. I do want to point out that the engine showed up yesterday, so that'll be revealed later. That's not important at the moment. I'm not sure what the next video is going to be on, but when it gets out there, you'll know. There's plenty of little things that I need to do to take care of the rest of this car, but it's coming along, and I'm pretty happy with where it's at this point. Again, thank you for watching, and if you'd be so kind, give me one of those thumbs up, and like, share, all those things, and stay tuned. There's always more to come. So on that note, but I welded it in 2 locations. The one on the oops. That's not good. Man down. Man down. Next video is going to be, I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know whenever I make that video.